of the Rotary Club of Lexington. As a reminder, please silence your phones or put them on mute. And now, since it's so cold outside, let's turn around and greet a fellow Rotarian, and we have a lot of guests celebrating.
Shall we bow our heads in prayer? We come in prayer this day to seek your guidance in our lives. We recognize our need for the courage and strength that you can provide us. We pray for a greater awareness of the needs of others. May we have loving and generous hearts that compel us to respond to those needs, be they financial, food and housing, or just a need for love. We pray for the courage you give us to make us open advocates of justice in our society. We pray that the love you give us will make us more loving and givers of compassion and mercy. We thank you for this gathering today, for the fellowship we share, for the food we eat, and for those who have prepared it. Help us to be forever grateful.
So today I'm going to lead you in a song you do not know, using a microphone you cannot hear, and the lyrics to which are reproduced on a screen that you cannot see. Oh, and Frank's not here too. So, let's just go all out, shall we? I guess I should tell you it's Danny Boy while we're working on getting it. So some of you may know it. There we go. All right.
Oh, Danny boy, the lives are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the roses falling. It's you must go and I must find. But don't give back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valleys hush and white with snow. And I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so.
So much. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we test.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you so much.
All I can say is we're going to have a wonderful program today. I have 2 pages of guest names, so instead of reading every one of them, I'd like to have every visitor that we have here today, guest, please stand up and be recognized by the club. All guests, please stand up. volumes about our program today. We have one visiting Rotarian, Steve Eagers from Louisville. And we have one Rotaract, Ryan Knott. Those are our guests, visiting Rotarians and Rotaract. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And now Mason McCauley, we're looking for the Jack of Spades, and the pot is $364. I checked with our speaker, it's okay to do this stuff here. The first number, the last four, 6124. 6124. And the other one is 6319. 6319. Or 6139. Six, 1, 3, 9.
There we go. All right.
Six, 1, 5, 6. 6, 1, 5, 6.
Which one?
Thank you, Steve.
Get back to the conversation.
Celebrating birthdays, Frank Stanger, Bill Craycraft, John Zink, and Joanne Underwood. Let's all wish them a happy birthday. Three quick announcements. Reminder, Rotary Leadership Institute is on the 27th of January. For those of you wanting to know more about Rotary, this is a great three-part program to participate in. There will be a Dancing with the Lexington Stars meeting after this meeting at 1:05. And Jamie Schrader's Scholarship Committee will be meeting for 18 minutes, starting at 1:05, according to Jamie. And the winners for the New York Strip Steak next week are February and August. The difference between those two was $24, according to Peggy. And then everyone who contributed $125 also receives the steak next week. I'd now like to introduce our Executive Director, Peggy Trafton, to introduce our newest Rotarian. Peggy?
Bill Bird?
Yes.
Oh, there she is. The snow and the sun is really very bright. It's hard to see. I'd like to introduce Bill Bird to our Rotary Club. You can read his bio in the Wheel Horse. But I want to say Bill started coming to Rotary the end of August versus September. And he told me he'd been a Rotarian in Overland Park, Kansas. Okay, but he's from Lexington. He retired and moved back here. He is was in the pharmaceutical industry and is clinical research. So the first couple of members he met were Dave Williams and Buzz, and he's still here. He also is a UK fan, but I don't know, I checked today and Kansas is ranked 6th in basketball, so we hope the move is still a good one for you back. Part of my job is when we get a Rotarian from another club where he was in Overland Park, he filled out his membership proposal and he'd been on their board of directors. He served as a trustee on their foundation. He was heavily involved in their club. So when I emailed the club to find out about him, I realized he's a living legend in Kansas. And it's my honor to introduce Bill Bird, our rock star from Kansas, and welcome to Lexington.
Thank you, Peggy. And now to introduce our newest Rotarian, Lauren Monet.
Good afternoon. I had the honor of meeting Miss Claudia Bray at a Rotary meeting a few months ago, and I really feel lucky to call her my friend. She's focused, determined, and lucky for me, full of great life advice. Claudia is a native of Lexington and graduated from UK, moved to sunny Palm Beach, Florida. I'm so sorry. She did not bring the weather with her. Where she began her teaching career. I encourage you to read her full bio in the Wheelhorse. She's really had an outstanding career filled with public service, and I feel really fortunate to call her a Rotarian. Ms. Green is currently a member of the Lexington Police Department Chaplaincy Program and a member of the Gainesway Neighborhood Association. Please give a warm Rotary welcome to my friend and our new member, Ms. Claudia Green.
Thank you, Lauren. And now our check presentation. Angie Tinch, the Chief Operating Officer of the Girl Scouts of Wilderness Road, will be accompanied by Endowment Board member Dave Williams, and we will be presenting a check to the Girl Scouts for $2,000 today.
Just want to thank everyone. Because of the Rotary, we're able to continue to serve kids at Cardinal Valley Elementary School, and we offer STEM programming to them, and also we are able to take them to camp. So thank you all very much. It is much appreciated, and something that continues year after year with that program. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. And since we have so many guests here today, the Lexington Rotary Endowment provides about $45,000 to $50,000 to various nonprofit organizations in the Central Kentucky Bluegrass area. So this is, again, one of the wonderful outreach programs that the Rotary Club of Lexington participates in. I'd now like to introduce Steve Stadler, who will introduce today's program and speaker. Steve?
So I'm not going to go over the write-up that's written in the Wheelhorse, although I do encourage all of you to take a look at that. When I was asked to introduce Luann today, I tried to think back to the time I was first introduced to Luann. And for me, Brian Matone was working at the county attorney's office, and he said, hey, there's a murder trial going on, and Luanna's the prosecutor, and you need to go over there and watch this. And I just wish that each of you could have had that type of an introduction to her, because you would really understand what a fabulous trial attorney she really is. There were many things, you had a PowerPoint presentation I remember a lot of things about this case, but for me it was very formative as a prosecutor in order to really see how a case should be tried and how you interact with the jury, all kinds of unspoken things. So I guess for the prosecutors here, we'd like to thank you, and particularly since you've been appointed to the position you have now, it has been a great transition for our office, at least. I'll speak for that, and I think you're doing a fabulous job in the community. So you don't want to hear from me. Luann, right?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction, Steve. And thank you for inviting me to be your guest here today and for the delicious lunch. And thank you also for everybody that came out that's a guest here today at the Rotary Club meeting that is friends and support of mine. And I can tell you that now that I'm in this position, how wonderful it is to look out into an audience and see friendly faces and to know that you are supported in so many different ways in the community when you have a job like I do. My goal here today is that you will leave knowing me a little bit better, your Commonwealth's attorney, that you'll have a better idea of what the Fayette Commonwealth's attorney does and the role that we play in the community. As most of you know, our office prosecutes crime. But really, what does that mean, to prosecute crime? I think as Rotarians, you know that each of us has an occupation in life, and that occupation provides us an opportunity to service. And as prosecutors, it is our mission not just to see that the guilty are punished, that victims are provided services, but to also do what we can in the community. And so some of the things I'm going to show you and tell you about our office, to me, represent that we are more than crime fighters, that we play a greater role, and that it is our occupation that allows us to serve. I'm a Wildcat fan. That's the first thing I want you to know about me. I moved to Kentucky when I was 12 years old from Oklahoma. I went to the University of Kentucky and graduated in 1981 with a degree in journalism. From there, I went straight into law school, University of Kentucky College of Law, graduating in 1984. And it's very difficult to see on the big screen, but if you look at the televisions all around, the monitors, Redcorn really is my last name. You'd be surprised the number of people that aren't really sure that someone's last name could really be Redcorn. But it is, and it's actually English. The last name is actually Habashutsi. That means red corn in Osage. I'm a member of the Osage Nation. My name in the Osage Nation is Gratashinka, which means little hawk woman. But I go by Luana. And for me, being American Indian is a very important part of who I am. In that photograph of me, you can also see my husband, Luke Morgan, who is an attorney here in town at the McBrayer Law Firm, and my two sons. Now that picture of the two boys is when they were a little younger. They're both adults now. One works in Charlotte, North Carolina. The other one is a junior in chemical engineering in UK. Our nation, our tribe, the reservation is in Oklahoma, and I take them back. We go back each year for our tribal dances, and they are involved in tribal activities. So it's very important to me that they understand who their people are, where they come from, and what their culture is. I spent most of my legal career in public service. I started out first at a local law firm here in Lexington upon graduating from law school, but very quickly realized that my real mission in life was going to be to serve people. And I took a job with the Public Defender's Office in Eastern Kentucky and moved to Stanton. Had not ever lived outside of a city before, and rented a house from the local circuit judge, and it was an incredible experience. I've got to tell you, as a public defender, your job is to represent indigent people charged with crimes. And that means advocating vigorously for your client, whether they are guilty or not. The first case that I ever had, I still think about, even now. I represented a woman by the name of Mary Ellen Reed. She lived in Owsley County, and she was charged with shooting her husband. Mary Ellen, it's interesting, the first case I would be defending was a domestic violence victim. Her husband, Alvin, was quite mean. They lived out in the county, and on a particular occasion, Alvin was assaulting Mary Ellen, and their teenage son had just had enough of it. And he pulled out a knife and threatened his dad. And his dad was going after him. And Mary Ellen retrieved a gun and shot Alvin in the leg. Didn't kill him, but shot him and stopped the violence. And I was appointed to represent Mary Ellen. And I'm happy to say that she was acquitted in a very short period of time because she was doing something she had the legal right to do. She was defending another person. She was defending her son. What's stuck with me, one of the things that really stuck with me about that case was not only the fact that Mary Ellen was a domestic violence victim who had never sought any help or protection from the government for what was happening to her, but it was how they lived. I went to their home to meet Mary Ellen to see where these things had happened, and they lived in a house in Owsley County without running water and with a dirt floor. And that made quite an impression on me as a young woman, as a young public defender, and really set for me, I think, a part of the foundation that caused me to understand that my occupation is part of my mission to serve. I left Owsley County in 1987 when Ray Larson offered me a job as an assistant Fayette County attorney here in Lexington. I worked with Ray until he retired in 2016. I came on first as an assistant in 1987, and then in 2006, I became his deputy or his first assistant, which meant that I didn't get any more money, but I got a lot more work. It was great. It gave me the opportunity to be more involved in administrative matters and to be involved in the supervision of the attorneys and to try and set a standard for how we were going to function in our office, and I really appreciate Ray giving me that opportunity to do that. These photos that are in this slide here are just a representation of some of the cases that I've been involved with over the years, and I really appreciate Steve's kind comments about my trial abilities. I certainly enjoy being in the courtroom. We don't have trials like we used to in the past, but these are just photographs from a number of trials I was involved in over the years. The one of me pointing my finger, that would have been the Shane Ragland trial in which he killed Trent DeGiro. Trent was a football player at the University of Kentucky, and he was killed, as he said, on his front porch. It was a sniper-style assault, and it was a case that took a long time to solve, and it was a very high-profile case, and as all these cases are, a very tragic case. The upside was that we got to meet the DeGiros, who are a wonderful family from Goshen, Kentucky, and we've remained friends with them since. The one with the nightgown, with the officer holding up the nightgown, is the Donald Southworth trial. He's charged with killing his wife, Mimi Southworth. This is the woman that was underneath the mattress in the back of their home for a period of time. And while she was clinically deceased at the time the police got there, she was still found to have a heartbeat, and it was tragic that she lay there for a period of time until she was taken to the hospital. That case went to trial, and Donald Southworth was convicted. And then there at the bottom is the most recent trial that I was involved in, and this is the murder of Alex Johnson. Alex was a cook or chef at the University of Kentucky, the Hillary Boone Center. He was murdered by a friend, two friends, as a matter of fact, and put in a barrel in the Kentucky River. These all things are all so tragic, but the relationships that you develop with the families is priceless. I got a phone call just at Christmas time from Alex's father. They live in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He just wanted to call and thank me again for all that we had done to invite us, myself, the other prosecutors, advocate, and police that were involved, to come down. That he had just built a new home. And he wanted us to know that we were welcome to come and stay there anytime we liked, that it was a very peaceful place, that you could sit out near his backyard and see the deer. And I could see that he was having some healing finally from what had happened to him. And so I appreciated the opportunity to be involved in that case and to be able to give them some comfort for what was such a horrible thing. There's any number of other cases that I listed up there that I won't go into, but I prosecuted Leonard Leemater for the abuse of children and the Mary Queen of the Holy Rosary. I prosecuted William Bennett along with Ray Larson, who killed Joe Angelucci, the son of Marlon and Joyce Angelucci, who was the deputy sheriff at the time. So after 30 years of prosecuting, I finally got the chance to become Commonwealth's attorney. When Ray retired in 2016, I was appointed by Governor Bevin, and I so appreciate Governor Bevin for giving me the opportunity to become Commonwealth's attorney. And it's been a wonderful experience. And those photos that you just saw, those are photos from my swearing-in ceremony. It was, of course, a wonderful day for me, and especially for my dad, who got to come down and watch and be a part of it. I don't think he could have been any prouder. And so now I'm the Commonwealth's attorney. And, you know, the guy that used to be the Commonwealth's attorney is a legend. And that would be Ray Larson, Ray the DA. Ray the DA. We talked about, when I became Commonwealth's attorney, what was my tagline going to be? Was I going to be LA the DA? And, but just, it wasn't right. That was Ray's thing. But I have so appreciated the opportunity to do this. And as Steve pointed out, in becoming Commonwealth's attorney, Larry was a great help to me. Larry Roberts contacted me, and our offices have worked extremely well together in the last 2 years. And when you work well together like that, the people that benefit from it are the community, and especially crime victims. This is my office. I just want to tell you a little bit about the Office of the Fayette Commonwealth's Attorneys. We have 20 prosecutors, not all of them full-time. 17 of them are full-time. We have 6 crime victims advocates and 6 administrative staff. And we're a very diverse group of people, as you can see from the faces on the screen. The prosecutors are 12 women and 6 men. In the office, we have American Indian, African Americans. We have naturalized citizens from Kosovo and Lebanon. We speak English, Spanish, Arabic, and Albanian. These are our crime victims advocates. These are the women who serve crime victims. They participate not only in helping victims, but are very involved in the prosecution of cases. And I think that's one thing that I really think is important about our office, is if you asked even the administrative staff, what do? You know what they'd say? We're prosecutors. Because the mission is a mission for everyone in our office, to serve this community in the best way that we can. So what do we do? Well, most of you know what we do. You see it on television, but there's so much more to what we do. We present cases to the grand jury, we resolve cases by pleas, by trials, we participate in task force, and we engage in strategic planning with our community partners. And let me tell you, in the last year, we've been very busy. This kind of gives you an idea of what the criminal indictments have been in Fayette County over the last 5 years. They were going down until 2017. I hope that's not because of me. It's not. There are other things at play, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But in the last year, we've had over 200 more indictments than we had the year before. Why is that? What's going on? Well, I think we all know one of the things that's going on is drugs. Drugs are a driver of crime. Not only in and of themselves, in that the possession of many of the drugs that are the problem are a crime, but drugs also drive crimes. And I think that is a big reason that the number of indictments that we had in the last year have gone up. Drugs and drug-related offenses represent at least 1/3 of our caseload. Another big part of what we do is being involved in other organizations or task forces that aren't directly related to the prosecution sometimes of an individual case, but are directly related to the mission. There's a table back here from the Children's Advocacy Center, the Bluegrass. Wynn is a Rotarian. Wynn. And I appreciate you all so much for coming out and supporting us today, supporting me. Children's Advocacy Center, if you don't know, the Bluegrass, is an organization whose mission is to serve sexually abused children. I'm a founding board member of that organization and continue to be involved in it. And we send a prosecutor to the Children's Advocacy Center once a week for the purposes of a multidisciplinary team case review of allegations of sexual abuse in Fayette County. It's part of the mission. It's not an individual case, but it's part of the mission of what we do, to work with others regarding child sexual abuse. The other photograph is a a lovely photograph of an elderly woman who was a victim of a crime, who's sitting in the pit of the courtroom, in the well, explaining to the judge what happened. The Judge Clark was gracious enough to let everybody come down to her level to talk about the crime. And then the third photograph is crime scene tape. We're very much involved in task forces relating to gun violence and violent crime, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But we're not just about prosecuting cases. Our office is also about public service. So the first year that I was there, we decided we were going to have an office-wide event that involves public service, and we were involved in the legal food frenzy. That was a initiative by God's Pantry and the Attorney General's office that pit law firms and government agencies against one another to raise money. And I'm proud to say that our office, the Office of the Fayette Commonwealth Attorney, came in first place statewide in the government division by raising over 16,000 tons of food and stuffing Polly Pockets into plastic bags at God's Pantry. It was cold. And we're involved in all sorts of other things. Within our office, each one of our prosecutors has things that they're involved with, whether it's codes for women at the Chrysalis House, raising money for the Children's Advocacy Center, or raising money for Crime Stoppers by participating in the shootout, with the Citizens Police Academy and judging Chile, which Larry got me into, with domestic violence, making all individuals who are victims of domestic violence aware of their rights and where the resources are, or in Habitat for Humanity, you'll recognize the woman with the paintbrush. Since becoming Commonwealth's attorney, and Steve mentioned this a little bit, we've enhanced our relationship with other law enforcement and prosecution organizations in Kentucky, or in Lexington. Ray did a fantastic job bringing victims' rights to the forefront. And he always had an event called the Second Class Citizens Luncheon for crime victims. It was a wonderful event. But this year we expanded that and included all of the other organizations that deal with victims. And it was a great event. What you see here is, in this photograph, are all the crime victims and advocates in Fayette County, from the United States Attorney's Office, the County Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Office, our office, and the Lexington Police Department. And individuals were recognized for their work with crime victims. In this photograph you see Sheriff Witt recognizing Diana Ross, Larry recognizing his advocate. I was able to recognize a woman in Fayette County Public Schools who played an important part in the investigation and prosecution of a child abuse case. And the other thing I've done since becoming Commonwealth's attorney is to establish a special victims unit. This is a unit that handles all of our cases involving our most vulnerable victims. Child sexual abuse, domestic violence, abuse of the elderly, these are very difficult and complex cases to prosecute. We want prosecutors who want to do that job. I'm not saying others don't want to do the job, but for some people, this is their mission. This is their passion. And so now we have 7 prosecutors who have asked for the assignment to be in charge of the prosecution of these cases. They don't like that picture. I don't show it to anybody else. You're getting an exclusive view here. We asked them to kind of look like Law and Order, and they did. And then, it's more than just cases. Let me give you an example of what we're doing now. In 2016, Commerce Lexington worked very hard to push an expungement law that allowed for the expungement of felonies, so that people who had gone a certain period of time would be eligible to go back into the workplace without that felony conviction. Now, regardless of how you may feel about that, that's the law. And we assisted in the sense that we were present and at the request of Commerce Lexington at a variety of events held around town for individuals that might be eligible for expungement. We didn't help them complete the paperwork, but what we did do was be there so they would be able to know whether they were in fact actually eligible. It costs money to have your convictions expunged, and so we participated in making sure that people were eligible. And of course, we are required then to file responses to all of those petitions. And from the numbers you can see, since it became law In 2016, 283 people in Fayette County have asked to have a felony conviction expunged or removed from their record. 195 have been approved and 80 were denied. Only denied because they were not legally eligible. The other thing that is now part of prosecution is the backlog. Most of you are aware that money was obtained by the state auditor to get a number of sexual assault kits that had not been tested into the system and tested. All the testing is being done now. Our office has a task force, a group. Erin Ann is the prosecutor that leads that, Greg's wife, and they review all the results as they come in. Today, of our 276 kits that went down, 31 have been tested and received, and we've notified 12 victims. Others are still in the process of being notified and trying to be located. This is not an individual case that we're prosecuting, but it's part of what we do. When I say we prosecute crime, this is what we do. And finally, the last thing that we're working on now, and it's kind of on the horizon for me to be accomplished in 2018, are two things. I've been working with the police and the Lexington Police and the Kentucky State Police for the last many months to put together a protocol for critical incidents involving law enforcement. What I'm talking about is an officer-involved shooting here. We need to have a protocol for what we're going to do should this happen. Should we have a situation that requires immediate response and trust from the community about what's going to happen if this happens in Fayette County. I hope we never have to implement the protocol, but it's going to be there. It's almost complete, and I'm hoping very soon I'll be able to fill you in on all the details of how it will work. What? Not yet. And then finally, we're combining, at 2 o'clock today, I'm having a meeting with the United States Attorney, our federal law enforcement partners, our local law enforcement partners, our local prosecutors, to talk about merging two task forces that we have together. One of them is called the Ceasefire Project, and it was with the United States Attorney's Office and deals with gun violence. The second is our Violent Crimes Task Force. Greg's been a big help to that task force. And we're going to merge those. Why are we doing that? Because we know that we have had an increase in violence in this city, primarily involving gun violence. And we're working even harder to organize our resources, to focus on high priority offenders that are involved in violence, to make sure that those that are violent are taken off the streets, to intervene or deter if there is a way to intervene or deter before it comes to that. And lastly, my last challenge is I'm running for Commonwealth Attorney. I've got the appointment, now I have to come through on it and be elected by the people. So that's me. That's my old boss, Ray Larson, Sheriff Witt, who both came down with me when I filed my papers back in November. And that Keep Red Corn Commonwealth's Attorney, I wish I could claim that I thought of that, but that's Ray Larson. No one can make a logo for themselves better than Ray. So I hope that I've given you a little bit more information than you had when you came into the room. I hope you know that your Fayette Commonwealth's Attorney is a hard-working group of dedicated people whose mission is to make this community a safe place to live, to make sure that we hold those that commit crimes are responsible, that we treat people fairly and consistently. And I'm looking forward to the new initiatives that we are going to be launching here very soon. And I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions. I'm told at 1 o'clock people will get up and walk out. And I just don't think I can handle that. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Just your opinion on Marcy's Law.
I think Marcy's Law is going to be a good thing. There's many of the things that are in Marcy's Law are already covered in the Victims' Bill of Rights. We're talking about a constitutional amendment now. And so I think there's just going to be no question that it's going to be passed, and we're already up and running and doing all the things that are in Marcy's Law. Yes, sir?
You had mentioned a third of all crimes are drug-related.
Yes.
What do you think the impact of medical marijuana or legalization of marijuana would have on that?
Well, that's kind of a personal thing. Personally, I'm not in favor of having another substance that inebriates and impairs. And my biggest concern about, not necessarily medical marijuana, but marijuana in general, and certainly recreational, is that there is so little information out there about how much marijuana can you ingest and safely operate a motor vehicle. And the folks in the county attorney's office will know this, that unlike alcohol, where we know one drink over a period of time equals this, and that this is not safe beyond this, we don't have that kind of information regarding marijuana. There's a sense that any amount of marijuana makes a person not good to be behind the wheel. So that's my concern. I'm really not in favor of it, but there's other people I'm sure smarter than me that'll be talking about it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there a process to expunge misdemeanors?
Yes, there is and has been for a very, very long time. And what I recommend that you do is grab one of these people over here at this table. Richard Vemont, he can help you if you want to talk to somebody about that. But absolutely, there has been for a very long time. All right, well, thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here.
And your office does for our community to keep it safe. And thank you again for your wonderful remarks. We are adjourned.